Begin with evocative, slow-paced music and quick cuts of misty Gettysburg landscapes, close-ups of statues, and blurred battle reenactments. Your voice is steady, deliberate, and full of gravitas. What if the map you know is wrong? What if the story etched in stone was just one possible ending? Music swells subtly, then drops to a tense, quiet pulse. Narrator, for over 160 years, we've been told the Battle of Gettysburg was decided by courage, by chance, by the collective weight of thousands of individual acts. But what if it wasn't? What if the true turning point hinged not on a volley of muskets, but on a single, desperate conversation? A warning spoken in the heat of July that was heard, and then deliberately ignored. Quick shot of an old, handwritten letter. The camera focuses on the words, "I beg to move around round top narrator." This is not a tale of what happened. This is the story of what almost did. This is the account of a general who saw a fatal flaw, who pleaded for a different path, and whose silenced objection might have rewritten the bloodiest chapter in American history. We have his own words. We have the confession sealed for over a decade that challenges the very foundations of our understanding. Music builds to a crescendo, then cuts abruptly to silence on a tight shot of your host narrator. The battle you think you know was inches from becoming a completely different story. This is how Gettysburg could have been changed, and this is why it wasn't. Why this intro works for your title, Change Gettysburg, Immediate What If? Hook, it starts with a bold, philosophical question that challenges the viewer's basic knowledge. Personalizes the scale. It takes the immense abstract scale of a three-day battle and focuses it on one desperate conversation, making the stakes feel intimate and urgent. Uses contrast masterfully. It contrasts the map you know with one possible ending and what happened with what almost did. This directly serves the changed premise. Creates a mystery box. It presents Hood's letter not just as a document, but as a confession and a silenced objection, framing the entire video as the unlocking of a secret. Closes with a powerful tagline, the final lines, "This is how Gettysburg could have been changed, and this is why it wasn't," perfectly encapsulate the video's dual narrative, exploring the alternate path while investigating why it was blocked. It promises both thrilling speculation and concrete historical revelation. This intro is designed to make the viewer feel like they are about to learn a hidden truth that reframes history, ensuring they stay to the end to get the full, shocking story. But before we begin, like and subscribe. What if the outcome at Gettysburg, that pivotal turning point of the American Civil War, could have depended on a single, frantic caution, a warning that was dismissed, misplaced, and almost erased from the historical record? Imagine the scene. It is July 2nd, 1863. The destiny of a country rests on a razor's edge. Amid the turmoil, a Confederate general identifies a deadly weakness in the strategy, a hidden route to triumph that no other officer is bold enough to pursue. Years afterward, in a confidential letter, General John Bell Hood at last discloses the startling reality, a desperate caution he attempted to deliver, and the obstinate order that overruled him. Why was Hood's urgent counsel rejected? What did he perceive that others overlooked? And in what way might this solitary choice have transformed everything we believe about Gettysburg? Continue watching, for in this presentation, we are uncovering the mysteries within Hood's 1875 correspondence, a record so astonishing it contests all you assumed you understood concerning America's most lethal clash. If you believe you comprehend Gettysburg, reconsider. This is the account they intended to conceal from you, and by the conclusion, you will doubt history itself. We shall commence, but before we begin, please support our channel with a like and subscribe to aid our community's expansion. When reflecting on the Battle of Gettysburg, several names instantly arise: Pickett, Hancock, Meade, McLaws, Longstreet. Yet today I wish to focus on General John Bell Hood. His attack on Little Round Top endures as one of the most decisive episodes of this legendary engagement. It is vital to examine his personal testimony of that fateful day, July 2nd, 1863, recorded years later in 1875. General James Longstreet, who had grown somewhat estranged from numerous former Confederates because of his changed political stance, wrote to Hood. He sought Hood's viewpoint regarding the occurrences at Gettysburg. I intend to present the letter Hood composed in reply to Longstreet, in which he straightforwardly relates his experiences throughout the battle. I reached the heights of Gettysburg alongside my staff shortly after sunrise on the morning of July 2nd. As noted earlier, my division proceeded to march into an open field. Close by, the troops were permitted to stack their arms and rest briefly while we awaited additional instructions from our superiors. Nearby, during the initial hours of that same morning, we were in conference with Generals Lee and A.P. Hill as we closely examined the disposition of the Union forces. General Lee, dressed in his complete uniform, his coat fastened to the throat and his sword belt cinched at the waist, paced steadily beneath the shade of the large trees near our position. He kept his field glasses at hand, pausing occasionally to scrutinize the enemy's positions more intently. He appeared optimistic, though at intervals he seemed absorbed in grave reflection, pondering the difficulties ahead. Nearby, Colonel Fremantle of England was seated in the crook of a tree, steadily employing his field glasses to examine the elevated terrain occupied by the Federal Army. It was evident General Lee was anxious for us to commence an assault that morning. He remarked to me, "The enemy is here, and if we do not defeat him, he will defeat us." But I judged it more prudent to delay until the arrival of Pickett's division, which remained behind us, before initiating our movement. Later, while we were seated together beside the trunk of a sturdy tree, you observed to me, "The general is somewhat restless this morning. He wishes me to attack, but I am reluctant to do so without Pickett." I have always hesitated before entering a fight inadequately prepared, frequently stating, "I never wish to go into battle missing one boot." Thus the morning dragged on, thick with expectation and mounting strain, until the afternoon came. Around 3 o'clock, we resolved upon a course of action. We could delay no longer for Pickett's division. We determined to focus on our far right and organize a charge along the Emmitsburg Road. McLaws advanced, and I followed immediately behind with my own division. Not long after, I received orders to hasten my troops' movement and overtake McLaws. To accomplish this, I dispatched a pioneer detail tasked with removing fences and clearing a path for our advance. The instructions given to me were explicit. I was to align my division along the Emmitsburg Road, form a battle line, and prepare our charge. However, before attaining the Emmitsburg Road, I chose to send out several of my most dependable Texas scouts. Their objective was to locate the enemy's extreme left flank. They returned promptly, informing me the enemy's flank lay anchored on Round Top Mountain. They relayed that the terrain was open, permitting us to advance through a wooded pasture around Round Top and assault the enemy's side or rear. They added that Federal supply wagons were massed densely behind their lines, leaving them exposed to an attack from that quarter. Upon arriving at the Emmitsburg Road, I acted without hesitation. I placed 1 or 2 artillery batteries and commenced firing, prepared to engage the enemy and alter the battle's trajectory. The enemy's artillery rapidly returned fire, disclosing their positions. Their left flank was adjacent to Round Top, their lines curving inward and outward, creating a concave shape as we progressed along the Emmitsburg Road. A substantial force was stationed ahead of their main line, situated between the Emmitsburg Road and Round Top Mountain. This unit was deployed in battle order upon a rise near a peach orchard. I recognized that to comply with instructions and proceed up the Emmitsburg Road, I must initially confront and push back this forward battle line. Additionally, at the foot of the mountain and ascending its slope, we discovered massive rocks heaped together, forming tight gaps that risked fracturing our ranks and dispersing the troops during the rugged ascent. Moreover, I knew my division would endure fierce fire from the enemy's principal line, situated atop the high grounds ridge, with Round Top anchoring their extreme left. The bowed shape of the enemy's main line meant we would endure devastating fire from the front, flank, and rear. I judged it almost unachievable to scale the sheer, stony mountain under such concentrated fire, while simultaneously forcing the enemy to retreat. I understood any victory would require a dreadful sacrifice from the bravest men ever to fight. The reconnaissance by my Texas scouts and my own inspection of Federal positions concluded with remarkable speed, quicker than describing it now, though the recollections of that day remain locked in my memory as if it were yesterday. These crucial observations arrived shortly after gaining the Emmitsburg Road, compelling me to urgently caution you that attacking as prescribed was ill-advised. I pleaded to march around Round Top and strike the enemy's side and rear instead, and so I sent an officer to recommend this modified approach, outlining my reasons. Your response was swift. General Lee's orders are to attack up the Emmitsburg Road. I sent another officer to reiterate my fears of failure and repeat my appeal to flank Round Top. Once more, your answer was unchanged. In the meantime, I sustained an artillery duel with the enemy, growing increasingly certain the Federal line reached to Round Top. I saw almost no feasible chance of accomplishing anything meaningful through the attack as directed. Indeed, the enemy's position appeared so formidable by nature that I might nearly call it unassailable. They could readily repel our charge simply by hurling stones down the slope as we climbed, aside from their flanking fire. For a third time, I dispatched a staff officer, my adjutant general, Colonel Harry Sellers, selected for his bravery and exceptional skill to thoroughly clarify the situation and convince you to observe it personally. Colonel Sellers came back bearing the same directive. General Lee's orders are to attack up the Emmitsburg Road. Almost immediately after Colonel Fairfax from your own staff arrived and repeated those orders. Following this fervent objection, my sole protest during all my years of service, I commanded my line to advance and commence the assault. As my men moved forward, you approached me in person. In our short exchange, I once more voiced my worries and my regret at being refused the chance to flank Round Top. You stressed that we must obey General Lee's orders. I then pushed my line ahead under devastating fire. Roughly 20 minutes after reaching the peach orchard, I sustained a grave wound to my arm and was borne from the field, concluding my role in this decisive battle. As I lay upon the stretcher being carried off, I felt profound grief in my heart and spirit, fearing for my valiant soldiers who formed one of the finest divisions in that famous army. I firmly believe that had I been permitted to maneuver around Round Top Mountain, we would have seized that position and routed the enemy. I remain respectfully yours, J.B. Hood. What renders these occurrences even more compelling is the first-hand narrative of General John Bell Hood, offering a unique window into the battle. It is vital to recall that Hood's testimony was penned over 10 years after the war concluded. This interval prompts doubts. Can we entirely rely on his recollections? Did he remember events exactly as they transpired? Human memory is inherently imperfect, with specifics often shifting or dimming over time. Hood never recorded his thoughts immediately following the battle, which throws additional uncertainty upon his account. Nevertheless, his letter to General James Longstreet endures as a fascinating glimpse into his experiences during one of the war's most critical junctures. What if Hood's warning had been listened to? Could the historical trajectory of Gettysburg have been altered? His correspondence offers a rare personal insight into a clash still enveloped in secrecy and debate. What is your view? Was Hood's scheme a missed possibility or simply a hopeless gamble? Share your thoughts below and continue watching as we uncover further concealed stories from history's most monumental battles. What if, to a deeper philosophical question about human nature, clarity, and powerlessness. This makes it relatable on a personal level, prompting viewers to project themselves into the story. 2. The ghost of every path refused. This is a powerful poetic phrase that frames the entire video in a new light. It's memorable and shareable, turning the specific into the universal. 3. Direct challenge to the viewer. The final questions are masterfully crafted. The only one who saw the truth, or the only one desperate enough to shout it? This dual framing invites debate. Was Hood a visionary or a malcontent? Viewers will pick sides. What would you have done? This is the ultimate engagement tool. It forces the viewer out of passive watching and into active participation, directly prompting a personal response in the comments. 4. Cinematic and emotional pacing. The shift from epic history to intimate reflection creates a powerful cool-down period that makes the final questions land with more weight. The closing text lines are enigmatic and provocative, encouraging shares and further thought. This ending doesn't just conclude the story, it reframes it as a mirror held up to the viewer, guaranteeing a high level of introspection and community discussion in your comment section